The first thing we need is a file structure. We need to set up our folders, or our root folder for our site. So I've already gone ahead and set up my root folder, and anybody who's followed along on the previous tutorials will know how to do this already, but basically you're creating a simple folder that's going to hold a copy of your website on your local machine while you're building it. Now, to create these folders within the root folder, I'm going to create two folders. So what I'll do is I'll create one in Dreamweaver and I'll create one inside our root folder, and you can see how both are done. Both are pretty straightforward. In Dreamweaver, in order to do it, you right click on your root folder and you select new folder. So this one is going to be our images folder, and anyone who has followed along with the previous series will know that I have a naming convention that I always call files that I create within my root folder. So this is _CSS is going to contain the CSS file that's going to contain all our CSS rules. And I was asked in the previous couple of times throughout the previous tutorial why I put an underscore at the start of my folders. There's no particular reason for it. It just makes it a little bit harder to guess your folder structure, but I suppose everybody who follows my tutorials knows that it's an underscore before them. But there's no particular reason behind it. So the next thing I'm going to do is we've created our CSS folder in Dreamweaver, so we're going to create our second folder, our images folder, in the root directory, and this is the root directory I've created here. It's actually on my local machine, and as you can see, there's our CSS folder created. So in order to do the same thing for your root folder, I'm going to create an images folder. So again, it's going to be underscore and images. So that's that folder created. So you may think, how come it's not showing up in Dreamweaver? Well, in Dreamweaver what you have to do is you actually have to refresh. So that's our file system created. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create our first actual document, our first HTML document. Now, the thing about this is, while it's going to be a HTML document, it's actually going to be a PHP document as well, which is actually both. And the reason I'm creating a PHP document is because we will be using a small amount of PHP at the end of the tutorial, just for one or two little functions. So I always create my files as PHP files. So in order to create that, we'll go to File and New, and again you're presented with a lot of options here inside of Dreamweaver, and as you can see you have your HTML, but I'm going to pick PHP. Now the next step is vital. This is something you have to do. By default, Dreamweaver sets your doc type to XHTML1 transitional. Now you can change that in your preferences if you want to. I haven't done it in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to HTML5. And once we do that, we just click on Create. And this will create a blank PHP document for us. Now I have this set up in CodeView. So you can see this is our basic PHP document set up, and this is a HTML5 document. And how we know that is by this definition at the very beginning of our HTML document. This is the description for the HTML5 that determines that it's a HTML5 document. So the next thing we have is we have our opening HTML tag and our closing HTML tag. So for each opening tag we have a closing tag. Now everything that's contained within the HTML tags will contain all our entire website. That's basically telling that this is a HTML document. Then we have the head section here, and as you can see we have our opening head section and our closing head section tags. This contains all the information about our site that's going to be conveyed to the likes of search engines. It's going to contain the background information for our website. The next thing then is the character set, which determines the encoding of the website in terms of language and things like that. And UTF-8 is generally the English kind of, I won't say font, but characters, those type of characters. So again, that's a self-closing tag. The next one then is our title tag, which contains the title of our site. So for this is going to be YouTube responsive. That's all I'm just going to call that. So that's our title, and then we have our closing head tag, and then we have our opening body tag. Now the opening, as you can see, it has a closing body tag as well. This is the area where our content is going to be housed. This is where the actual website itself will be displayed. Anything within the body tags is displayed in the browser. So as you can see, it hasn't saved as anything here. So what I'm going to save it as is File, Save As, and because it's the main page on our website, it's going to be called index. So it's index.php. Now it's already given it this in Dreamweaver, but if you're using this in whatever other file editor or text editor you're using, you probably have to give it that PHP extension. But ours is already in place because we created it as a PHP document, so I don't need to add that in. So, and we're saving this in our directory, in our root directory. It doesn't go into the CSS or the images folder. So if we save that, and you can see our title changed here, and the next thing we want to do is we want to create a CSS document. So again, we go up to File, a New, and you can see it's actually there. There's nothing extra you have to do. You just click Create, and you can delete those first two characters. I never keep them in place, and that's your CSS document created. All we need to do now is save it. So File, Save As, and again I want this to be in our CSS folder. So as you can see, because we've created it as a CSS document, it already gives it the extension of CSS. So all we have to do is actually name it. Now I generally tend to name all mine the same, so it's style.css. So we save that, and that's our file structure pretty much set in place.